It's none other than Gareth the God Soloway. Rock all those badges. Gareth, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for the nice intro. I appreciate that.
Hey, man, we appreciate you joining us. I know you're super busy. I've literally seen you everywhere. Twitter, YouTube, other channels, your own channel. I mean, you're a busy man.
I seen him in person down.
You saw him in person?
Bitcoin Miami. So
have I met Gareth in person? I don't think I have.
You know what? Gareth throws a mean ass party, man. Like that was the first party I went to when I was down in Miami, man. He had all the snacks. It was nice.
If you guys don't know, at heart, Robin is a. Oh, by the way, Gareth, this is our friend Honest. He's joining us in studio. Not sure if you guys have met each other yet before, but there you go. Now, Gareth, I do want to just come out and say, last time you were on our show, and anytime you're on other channels, I always watch because I love your content. People have given you a nickname, Gareth Soloway.
This is the first time. He said that earlier.
No, Gareth knows.
I had never heard
People
it before,
have been saying Barrett,
is that a thing?
Barrett Soloway. People are saying everyone is starting to drink the hopium, and you're still negative on the market. And I want to ask you, right? I want to say this as well to people watching. It's good. It's good to listen to people that are in line with your thought process. It's even better to listen to people who have a different view than you, because if you get into this can of just listening to voices that just affirm what you believe, you're never going to become a successful trader, investor. And so I want to ask you, Gareth, what is it? Is there something hanging over whether the crypto market, the traditional market, that is kind of not letting you be like more bullish for price action, whether that's in the short, medium, or long term? Is it more macro? Is it the space? Is it like a Tether, Binance? What is it?
Yeah. So for the viewers out there, I mean, if they've been following me, they know I'm really long-term bullish on Bitcoin. Like, I do think 100K is coming. I do think 250. I think even more. I think it's going to be the digital gold. I think in 50 years, and when I'm old and decrepit, it's going to be the standard, right? So that's the long-term view. But going through the dot-com bubble and pop, the 2007 Great Recession, what you start to recognize is there's a repetitive nature of human emotion that comes into play. And we're in that period where there was so much froth in the system that it has to be washed out. And I don't think it's been washed out yet. I think with Bitcoin, you're getting close. But my issue with Bitcoin is not Bitcoin directly. It's the macro economic issues out there and the potential for a stock market correction. So I know it sounds weird to a lot of people where it's like, okay, well, how is the stock market going to impact crypto and drive it back down to the lows? But if you look at the NASDAQ, for instance, we're 40% off, we're basically rallied 30-40%, and crypto has rallied 100%. But where are we in relation? In fact, let me see if I can show my screen here. I think this would be a great kind of example. Bear with me. Let me just get this up here. So let me go over to the NASDAQ chart here so we can get a quick picture of this. And I think it'll kind of make it very clear to everyone. So if we look at the daily chart of the NASDAQ and the daily chart, or this is the weekly, but let's flip over to the daily chart of the Bitcoin, look at the rally in the NASDAQ and look at the rally in Bitcoin. Needless to say, we're much closer to the all-time highs on the NASDAQ than we are on Bitcoin. So my theory is that crypto's been lagging, even though it's hard to say 100% gain and Bitcoin is lagging comparatively to a risk asset like the NASDAQ. It has been lagging, right? If these were equal, Bitcoin would be trading right now somewhere in the $50,000 to $55,000 range. And so the concept here is that if we start to see a recession hit the economy and the NASDAQ starts coming back to the October lows, where does Bitcoin go? Does Bitcoin come back to the lows here, or does it potentially go down even further because the bounce was much weaker? So those are some of the things I'm dealing with, where in essence, I continue to be long-term bullish on Bitcoin, but I just think that there's some macro headwinds coming up that people aren't ready for. I think inflation will remain 3%-ish, which is going to make it very hard for the Fed to rescue us and drop interest rates and print money. And I think ultimately we are going to head into a recession, even though this narrative that's been spun now is no recession.
Gareth, let me ask you this question, because, the ETF narrative, and I feel like more and more people now are believing that a spot Bitcoin ETF is going to get approved. And the first thing people say is, oh my God, that's going to bring so much money and liquidity to the market. Can the opposite be true as well? If we do get into a macro recession, Now, traditional money has access to Bitcoin, and well, we know what they do. They sell off. They sell off stocks, and like it or hate it, Bitcoin and crypto are considered risk-on assets.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so there is no doubt. I mean, eventually, I do think Bitcoin is a gold type thing where when you have a risk off scenario in the stock market, Bitcoin could actually go up. But that's not what we have right now, right? You've seen glimmers of it because the way you know there was glimmers is because when Silicon Valley Bank failed and the banks were failing and people were actually pulling their money out of banks, we saw Bitcoin actually go up during that period. So it did tell us that there's hope that eventually it switches, but you're not seeing that correlation stay. And so it's still a risk asset, which is, again, exactly my point here, where if the NASDAQ starts to sell off due to, panic that we're heading into a recession and the Fed can't print us out right away because inflation's so high, you'd have to assume that selling fear, that fear that's driving the stock market down, would translate over into crypto as well.
That makes sense. Gareth, I want to share a tweet with you, and I want to get your opinion. So this is from Quentin Francois. He tweeted this chart, and let's take a look here. So here you have broken down into years, right? And so on the bottom it says bear market 2011, 2014, 2018, 2022. Then we have a pre-bull market, which apparently, according to this, is where we're at now. Then you have the first bull run and the second bull run. Are you seeing more of the same as far as market structure for Bitcoin? And I know we've asked you this pretty much every time you've come here, but do you still believe the bottom is in for Bitcoin? And if you want to talk through that with a Bitcoin chart, please feel free to do so.
Yeah, so first off, this is the coolest chart ever. I mean, to put that together, I give them a lot of credit. That's really cool. So you're right. It looks like we're playing out the cycle, the 4-year cycle, exactly as the last few cycles have been. And so as of now, this is fine. But again, the question I would just pose is, in previous cycles, what has happened when the stock market? So let's say the stock market doesn't behave in the way that it has. And I'd have to go look at this and see exactly, and maybe one of your viewers can do this, but what has the NASDAQ done, for instance, in that 2024 period and 2025 period versus past 2020, 2021 to 2020? We know what the markets were doing. They were ripping higher after COVID. So we know that the NASDAQ was insanely strong. So I would just be curious to go back in these previous cycles and see, was there a 2024, 2025 period on those years going back that the NASDAQ actually had a dump? And if it did, that would be a positive for Bitcoin. To see Bitcoin still performing like this, that would be a positive. If you can't, and the NASDAQ was always rallying during these years, that's problematic. That could mean that the cycle is not going to play out if the NASDAQ declines.
Okay.
And then is there any other risk assets that you kind of look at outside of the NASDAQ that you use as a gauge to where the crypto markets might move? Like particularly like maybe AI or something, or do you just broadly look at the NASDAQ and maybe the S&P 500, or are you looking anywhere else when trying to gauge movement in Bitcoin and in the crypto markets?
Yeah, so I think at least for crypto, it's very much related to the riskiest assets, right? So Nvidia would be one, which is AI related, and again, it's known as kind of the run on tech and the kind of the hottest out there. I think Tesla was that in 2021. It's kind of diverging now. If we flip over to a chart here, we can see again Tesla's down today. It's kind of been cascading lower. Interesting little note here, and again, let me just split up my screen here. So if we put Bitcoin over here, it's interesting to see Tesla high here. Looks like honestly it coincided with the chart of Bitcoin making the high right here as well, almost perfectly right there. So again, these are the stocks, and interestingly enough, a lot of crypto people are very into Elon Musk and therefore buy Tesla stock. So there's this coordination between risk on in Tesla, Bitcoin going up, risk off in Tesla, Bitcoin going down. So I think that and Nvidia would be the two ones that I would go to. And then just flipping back to Bitcoin here, I just want to show you guys here, just for everyone there. And again, being clear on this, Gareth Soloway, I don't mind the nickname, but I'm very much a trader, right? So
Yeah.
If you look at the price action, if it hits support, I'm going to be buying it. If it hits resistance, I'm probably selling or shorting it. Now, my macro thesis is still that we're down. Eventually, I'll flip into a bull once I think the bottom is in. But just to kind of give you a sense here, is here's a major trend line on Bitcoin, right? This upsloping trend line. It's basically connecting all of these pivot points. It's a perfect line. So if you come down into that level, that's technical support, and you want to see Bitcoin hold that. If Bitcoin doesn't hold that, that would be where you would get those warning lights, those flashing red lights, because it's not holding its uptrend trend line. So if it trades below, let's say 27,000, that would be problematic. As long as it holds this level, then you actually could catapult off of that to new highs, new 52-week highs. So this, again, this 27-ish thousand range, 27.5, watch that really closely. Key is Bitcoin needs to hold that and then start trading off of that in a strong manner.
Now, Gareth, we did have the likes of John Bollinger, you know, the creator of the Bollinger Bands, come out and say, hey, this is the tightest the Bollinger Bands have ever been on Bitcoin. We know volatility is at like a 4-year low. And, you know, you're the master trader here. But from my personal experience, you get those Bollinger Bands start to super tighten. You know, the longer and tighter they get, the bigger the move. Now, the question is that move going to be to the upside or to the downside? What are your thoughts as far as that? If you had to kind of put probabilities on it.
So again, one of the things to note is that you're right. When volatility gets sucked out of something, it's usually a precursor to some major move in one direction. Right now, if you look at the past cycles, the same period of this cycle from the past 4-year cycle, you had the same sort of kind of dead consolidation, and then you kind of had a flush out. So that would be where I would lean at this point. Again, the 27-ish thousand range being very, very key. If that breaks, then you really start to get into troubled situations. But the one level I would just continue to watch. So if you're looking at a bull case on Bitcoin, and by the way, even if you're bearish macro, you have to look at both sides. You have to say, okay, yes, probability may tell me it's going to go lower, but what if it doesn't? How do I react? And so one of the things I'm watching is this trend line, this yellow trend line goes back to the 2021 bull market lows. And we can see right through here, that's where price is stalled. So if price were to trade above here and hold above here, that would be a breakout. And then you'd likely, honestly, you'd probably go to 45,000 if that kind of gets taken out.
Ooh, 45K sounds real nice.
And now, I don't think I was showing my chart there, and I apologize. So let me just go back to that. Here's that yellow line. So this line right here is the one. And again, pivot high, pivot high. You can see how it kept on getting rejected. If we can bust through that, that would be, again, look at that move up there. That's a connector, by the way, going back on my chart. And for some reason, my chart's not reloading. Let me try to redo that. There we go. From this 2019 high, look at that line right through the lows, right through these lows. That gives you an upside target on Bitcoin of around 45,000. So what you can see here also is that this yellow line and this white line, they're converging. So that even more tells you there's going to be a major move one way or the other, because price will have to either break out or break down as these lines converge in a tighter and tighter zone.
Gareth, I want to ask you, you know, that level you have on there, and by the way, that's on the daily. So it's an even more important level versus, you know, the 1 hour, the 4 hour. Once it does break that, let's just say it breaks above that trend line, right? Are you expecting it to kind of bump and run, come back and retest that as support? Are you expecting just a straight shot to 36 or 45K? You know, what are your thoughts? And if people are getting ready to trade that breakout, what advice would you give them?
So the key is this, let's go back to take a look at the chart here. So because you continue to hammer, it's telling you that you're slowly digesting all of the sellers in this range. So my guess is if you really do break out, and again, this could be in the next, you know, for all we know, in the next couple of weeks, you're going to get a lot of short covering and you're going to get a lot of new buyers. So my guess is it shoots almost instantly up to about 35,000. 35,000 coexists right in this range, these lows kind of right here. So I think you'd go almost straight to 35,000. You then might get a check back. So oftentimes when you break out after the initial surge, you get kind of a retrace to test the level that you just broke out before it continues on its way, in this case, to, in my opinion, 45,000. So again, probably an initial real powerful surge where everyone goes, holy cow, look at that. And then it'll eventually stall out because of lack of buyers and come back in a little bit before the next move.
That makes sense.
You know, there's, I know we were talking about price, the price really not moving much and having a lack of volume. Well, I don't know if you guys, just on a little side note here, you have here you have the Bitcoin price last month. So in the last 30 days, we've seen the Bitcoin price really not a little dip, a little rally, but essentially
back to square one.
Yeah, we've just been hanging out at this 29,000, man. It's just, I feel like we're about to break out, and then, well, no, we're right back where we were.
I mean, it is remarkable, right? Because in a way, you could argue that, Bitcoin is breaking people's stamina because of not price action going down, but it's just not doing anything. And it's almost like boring you to death, where it's just like people are like, what the heck? I'm getting bored with this. And I think in a weird way, the stock market's become more volatile than Bitcoin. And it's actually probably drawn money away from crypto because of the lack of volatility into the stock market, which is more volatile right now.
Do you think that'll flip?
That's
You think that in perhaps a year from now, and you have the halving, the ETF, say we're to go to live, for example, do you think that that narrative will flip and maybe we'll have the traditional S&P 500 just slowly crawling up like it, has in the last 12 years, and you see Bitcoin with massive volume swings and volatility and breaking new all-time highs, or do you think that we'll get back to that narrative, or do you think this kind of consolidation is more normal?
I do. I mean, I don't know when we'll break all-time highs, even though I do think it does happen probably in the next 5 years. But I do think the volatility will come back. And I think it's going to be a combination of the stock market will get clear, which will increase volatility in Bitcoin. But also my guess is if interest rates continue up, you're going to have more problems with banks. And you'll probably see potentially some buying because of that aspect too. So again, the higher interest rates go, and I was just doing some charting on the 10-year, and I'll show my chart here on the 10-year, but it's actually looking like we're going to head higher on yields, right? So there's this trend line going back to this area here, and my guess is we're headed up to about 4.5 on the 10-year. And if we remember, there's two things, right? So this high right here on the 10-year, that was when the markets bottomed. So when the yields topped out, the stock market bottomed in October, which basically was Bitcoin's bottom. And then this secondary top is when the banks started to fail. And so what we know is that every time you get a big pop out of the yields, it's putting pressure on the banking system. And so in a weird way, you'll have to see, does that end up causing issues in the banking system, which could cause a new move into Bitcoin for money.
Yeah, and Jacob in the chat said, not to mention student loan repayments coming in hot less than a month, and then that takes liquidity away from the markets as well. But it was intriguing what you said.
Speaking of chat, I just wanted to a quick shout out. If you guys are new here, say hello. But let's show Gareth some support here. If you're enjoying the content, let's show them how we do it here. Drop an hola in the chat, and I'll start the hola chant. I'll put the first one in there. We have about 250 people watching. Let's see if we can get 200 holas in the chat. Let's spam the crap out of this thing.
Yeah. Speaking of now, Gareth, on a lighter note, some traders, and I don't know if you do this, some traders trade in, sectors, categories, right? Tech or health and services. Well, crypto also has categories, and I'm curious, there is a new category introduced by CoinGecko. Will you be trading the brand new alleged securities category?
Stop.
I'm being dead serious. Alleged SEC
I believe
securities.
it. I believe it, but
this contains the likes of Binance, Cardano, Solana, Tron, Polygon.
Yeah.
Oh man, of course.
Is everything in there but
Bitcoin?
Bitcoin?
ETH is not in here.
ETH's not in there? Okay.
No. Man. Gareth, what are your?
So I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of trading anything that is big enough, meaning market cap wise, where I don't feel like I'm going to get rugged, or that has enough volume. That's my criteria. So I don't discriminate other than that. So for instance, Cardano. Let me show my Cardano chart if you guys don't mind.
Oh hell yeah, let's go.
All right, so let me bring up here. There we go. So check this out. So Cardano, actually, and these are swing trade levels. I want to say that. So these aren't like long-term investable levels for me, at least. But there's this downsloping trend line, and you can see that we started to come down to it. But if we get down to like 27 cents, I would start nibbling there just a little bit. On Matic, which is Polygon. Polygon actually kissed a little technical support today right here. Next level would be around 61 cents. But you're starting to get these things to come into levels where you might get a technical bounce out of them. And again, a bounce could be, you know, on something like Matic, you know, you're looking for a move back to like 73 cents. So now percentage wise for me as a swing trader, that's pretty good. For some of you guys, it may not be worth it. But even on like Solana's right here. It's holding on to this support. I'm not a buyer here, but if it were to dump to this area down here around $16 or so, 16 and a half, that to me is a convergence of two major trend lines, and it's tradable. You know, there's so again, you know, you don't have to be, you could be macro bearish and still go long. In fact, you know, I'll just show this here, guys. This is my track record, and the only reason I'm showing this is because it's short, long, 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 short, buy, and the buys are the same as longs. But you could see is that as a trader, you can be bearish on the bigger picture or the midterm, even if you're bullish long term, and you can also still go long in a bear market, which is amazing as long as you can read the charts. So it's the beauty of trading is that you can actually make more money that way by trading long and short in a bear market or in a bull market.
Gareth, we always slot you for like 15 minutes, and then we always keep you longer. And I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. You're just, we're going to let you go soon, I promise. I do want to ask you. So we got news. PayPal is launching a stable coin. And I wanted to ask you, we don't do a lot of macro charting here on Sin City Crypto. So how has the PayPal stock reacted to this news? And in your opinion, is it a good buy, long-term hold with this news? You know, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, so the PayPal reported earnings last week, and they were horrendous. So the stock had a big drop here. You can see this big move down today on that news. It's either the fact that the stock's oversold or it's on the news. I don't know which one, but it is getting a small bounce. But I mean, this is the kicker, right? Is like, I don't understand the use case for all of these stable coins. Like, why do we need 1,000 stable coins? I mean, you're going to get CBDCs, you're going to get stable coins. You already got Tether, USDC, and now everyone is putting out a stable coin. Like, again, I just don't understand why we need these personally, nor the purpose of them all. I could be wrong, and again, there might be a purpose, but to me, it's a waste. It doesn't make me like PayPal anymore at all. It's kind of a non-event for me.
Fair enough. And then one more chart, Gareth, if you could do us a favor and take a look at. So Optimism, OP, is the ticker symbol. It is a layer 2 on Ethereum. And the reason we're bringing this up is because Coinbase's layer 2 is launching in 2 days. And well, we know it's built on Optimism, on the Optimism stack, and they use OP for gas. So, we saw daily active users surge. We saw total active addresses. So everything is surging in the Optimism ecosystem. What is the chart for the OP token looking like? And what are some key support and or resistance levels?
Yeah, so actually this chart is, assuming I'm looking at the right chart, and I've never looked at this before, to be honest.
Yeah, that's
but
it.
I mean, it doesn't look bad to me. I mean, it's put in a low in June, and it's slowly been grinding up. That's as opposed to a lot of other altcoins that have started to pull back quite a bit. This hasn't yet. The only thing you're watching here, and this is pretty clear, is if you look at this. So during this bullish run over here, this was your low pivot right in here. And you can see this level here, it kind of coordinates right with that high. So if we drag that across, that to me is the level you're watching. So if you're a bull on OP, you need to take out 182 and stay above 182. If you take that out, then you actually could continue up substantially. Let me just do one more trend line here that I'm just kind of curious about. All right, so, well, that's doesn't help the case that much. So check that. So anywhere between 182 and 188, that's resistance. So if you get through 182, that's great, but then you got to deal with 188, 190 area right here. So suffice it to tell you this is like on this chart, let me just see if I can find some stuff to put on here. All right, so we'll do, this is kind of like your zone where you're kind of like, okay, and then, and I'm just, by the way, having fun now, but
I love it.
This is where you want to be. You want to be up here. You get priced up here. That frees it from resistance. Anything in here is kind of like, which way is it going to go? It might pull back. It might break out. But once it gets above this area, that's really the good stuff.
We love the smiley face. Gareth, man, thank you so much. It's been a while since we brought you on. We're so happy you made time for us. We really appreciate you. We know you're in high demand. Guys, if you want more Gareth, And I can't imagine anyone watching is not following you on Twitter already. But if you're not, go follow him at Gareth Soloway. Also, his team and him, they do Twitter Spaces every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. They bring a bunch of amazing experts on there. We go on there as well, and such a great time. But Gareth, if people want more of the technical stuff and maybe how to learn trading and indicators, is there somewhere where people can go?
Yeah, absolutely. Just jump over to verifiedinvesting.com here, and that's where it's going to be. So I have my course over there called the Winning Trader Series. In fact, here, I'll just quickly. So Winning Trader Series right there. And then for my crypto alerts are right there. And you guys are the best. Like, thank you guys for coming on the spaces so regularly and making sure that, the knowledge is spread. And you guys do a great show as well. And I appreciate that.
We appreciate you, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us, Gareth. Guys, go follow Gareth on Twitter. Go listen to the Twitter Spaces. And if you want to learn more about crypto, TA, and just TA in general, there's no better person to learn from than Gareth. Thank you again, my brother. We look forward to bringing you on again, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. And we'll definitely
Thank you so much, guys.